Should we bring in the closer? And
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. My name is Davis Burt. As always, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, fantasy baseball current frontrunner in our league, Jake Crumpler. How's it going, Jake? I am struggling right now because all the tabs on my computer are frozen, so you can do the brunt of the talking for now. I try to fix it.
It's been a really weird month for me. I think it's because Mercury's in retrograde. I'm not usually an astrology guy, but when I had the weirdest week ever, and it was followed up by a weirder week and followed up by a week weirder than that, and it coincides with Mercury being in retrograde, I start to believe the month started out with a dead rat in my car, in my under my hood, and it's in such a spot in that I can't get to it. I cannot get in there and reach it out. I have to go in there and crush it up or something, and then leaf blow it out. It's terrible. It smelled for a day, and now it doesn't smell, and I'm too scared to check to see what state it's in. And that was probably the least weird thing to happen to me. It just started the month. My grandparents got COVID. My mom got in a car accident. I might have to leave my housing arrangement. World War III started. And also, baseball season in full swing.
Oh, yeah, sick. Pretty solid start. But yeah, hold on. I'm going to pull up the thing on my phone because it is just flat out not working for me, and we're just going to do it live. We can talk about some hot starts in baseball to counteract Jake's awful month, slow start, and we can start talking about probably the hottest hitter in the entire sport, which is Mookie Betts, who slashed .388. He had .490 on base percentage, slugged .700. He had 22 runs, which is astronomical, especially for an offense that is not exactly firing on all cylinders right now. 6 home runs, great. 18 RBIs, 3 steals in the few days that we have played so far. 1.9 FWAR so far already, which is absolutely insane for Mookie, who is really trying to avenge his MVP runner-up from last season. I think he's definitely the front runner right now in the NL.
Yeah, I mean, putting up those kinds of numbers in 3 weeks is crazy. 1.9 FWAR in 3 weeks is ridiculous. I mean, this is like a 25-week season. You multiply that by 8, he's on pace for like a 16 FWAR season. Obviously, he's not going to keep up this pace, but it's ridiculous what Mookie's doing. And I think with all the greatness that he has had, it's easy for him to go underlooked just with guys overshadowing him throughout his career, right? He's only had the one MVP. There's never really been a season where it's like Mookie Betts is no doubt the best player in baseball. He's never like the number 1 pick in fantasy. I think there might have been one year, but with Trout always around when Mookie Betts was first making a name for himself, and then Shohei Ohtani around for the last few years, making everybody look like mere mortals. And now Mookie sort of by himself because Shohei's on his team. He can prove, hey, I'm better than Shohei. Shohei can't even pitch. And then Trout in another league, he doesn't have to deal with him to fight for MVPs. Trout having a renaissance season, but Mookie looking like he is the best player in baseball, and also just making it very difficult to forget that he is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Definitely so. And it's really nice to see for Mookie. The Dodgers outfield has been really bad. Of course, that's not really a Mookie thing now. Of course, playing shortstop, playing an excellent shortstop too, which is just insane. He's one of the most talented, genuinely, defenders the sport's seen in a long, long time. And he's really, really coming to his own, especially as like a power hitter later on in his career, which is just, it's a really cool transition to see as he sort of gets older. It feels like he's getting a lot better. He's always been good, but like you said, he's never been the de facto, like Mookie Betts is the best player in baseball. He's always been around like the top 3 to top 5 conversation. But this year so far, I mean, he is leading the conversation so far, but it's good to see. And we can talk about another guy who continues to get better with age, and this time it's on the AL side, and it's Jose Altuve, who slash line looks pretty similar. He's hitting .382, got a .453 on base percentage. He's slugging .684. He scored 14 runs, a lot less than 22, 5 home runs, 7 RBIs. He's got a steal in there. He's worth 1.5 FWAR already for Mr. Altuve and the Astros, who also sort of started out pretty slow. So these two sort of carrying the freight for their offense while they get things figured out early on in the season. Talk me through Jose Altuve's hot start.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, I never really doubted Altuve, especially after 2017. I didn't think everything he had done
Right.
after things came out in 2019 was just a fluke. And obviously, he's become a different hitter than he was when he was batting like 330 and stealing 30 bases. I mean, he batted 341, stole 56 bases, and hit 7 home runs in 2014. And now he's a guy who could still bat 340, but he can hit 30 home runs if he really has his best year. He's done that twice. And yeah, I think Altuve is just absolutely incredible. Also going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I am super excited to just continue to watch his chase towards 3,000 hits. He's at 2,076, not counting whatever he's done today or whatever he's going to do today. No idea if they've played yet. But there's definitely a realistic possibility, even at 34, that he could still do it. Let's say he gets 150 hits for the next 5 seasons. That would put him at 300, 600, 750 added to the 2076. And he would be at 2,800. I think he can do it.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a chance. We had that conversation a long time ago about active players with the best chance to get 3,000 hits, and I think we were both pretty close on like talking like Altuve's got a real legitimate shot just because he's been one of the best contact hitters for a long time at this point. And it feels like his game just translates. I mean, he puts the ball in play. He almost feels like a modern day kind of like a Paul Molitor, just with more power. And he's just so good. He's really, really good. I think the whole sign stealing thing sort of is a black mark on his career, but it's really taking away from a player that has just been great at what he does for so long at this point.
Yeah,
I'll
be right back. I'm connected to the wrong Wi-Fi network, and I don't want it to mess things up later. So I'll be back in like 10 seconds.
Okay. While we wait for that, I can just sort of hold down the fort. Yeah. So Altuve is really, really beating up on his division two. Of course, went and banged in against Nathan Eovaldi in the last start. He's actually killed the Rangers for his career. 304, 224 hits. He's got 34 homers just against the Rangers, 91 RBIs, 136 runs in this 186 games against the Rangers, which is pretty good in a divisional race, while the Astros sort of try to pick up the pieces and get back to their run of dominance atop the division after sort of being dethroned by the Rangers last season with their World Series win. And yeah, we can move on while I wait for Jake so he can talk about one of his fantasy standouts, Cutter Crawford, who has had a really, really hot start. Still yet to get a decision, though. He's pitched 21 and a third innings. He's got a .42 ERA. He's got a .80 whip. He's striking out close to 30% of the batters. It's 28.9%. He's worth just shy of 1 F4 through a handful of starts at 0.9. I'm really thrilled to hear what Jake has to say about Cutter because his connection with Pitcher List and because of him being on his fantasy team, which is really, really fun. While I wait for him.
I'm right here. Can you not see me?
Hold on.
Hello? Well, I can hear you. This is crazy. I think he needs to join and leave and come back. Maybe I will. Can you hear me now? All right. Well, Davis can hear me, but maybe you guys can. We are currently having some technical difficulties, so I apologize for that. I think his entire computer froze, which is very, very cool. But he set me up perfectly to talk about Cutter Crawford. Um, he is hard resetting his computer, so we'll give him a couple minutes, and I'll talk about Cutter Crawford. Cutter Crawford was probably my biggest breakout pick for pitchers. I was super excited to see what he could do this year, given he had a very deep arsenal with which he could control his pitches. And so that on top of, another season in the big leagues, he's going to up his innings total after throwing 130 at the major league level last year, with some of those being relief appearances. This is a guy projected for probably 160, maybe more innings. And that's pretty safe right there. And I felt like he had the floor of what my boss at Pitcher List considers to be a Toby, a guy who's going to have a pretty decent ratios, but isn't going to have a ton of strikeouts. And that's what I felt like the floor was for Cutter Crawford. Somebody like Michael Walker, Seth Lugo, just like a guy that's very streamable, probably should be rostered on every team, but isn't going to be, the shiny toy that gets everybody excited. Isn't going to have a huge breakout season, but Crawford had that ceiling, and that's what had me intrigued. He was a guy that I felt if he controlled his fastball up in the zone, which is something that he proved to be able to do as a guy with good command, I felt like he probably also had good control. So if he gets that fastball upstairs, he's got enough weapons to take down other hitters. A cutter, obviously with a K, it's Cutter Crawford, a sweeper, a curveball, a splitter, a slider, everything. And then now with the new pitching development staff in Boston, Andrew Bailey coming over from San Francisco and Kyle Bodie coming over from Driveline, they are influencing the pitchers in Boston to lean more heavily on their breaking pitches. And I think that could help Crawford's fastball play up even more. Whereas last year he used it 40% of the time. Now he's down to 30% of the time as he's turning to that sweeper quite often. And while his strikeouts haven't ticked up a ton, they've ticked up a little. And I think that sweeper getting a lot of swings and misses will help out there. Right now, 17% swinging strike rate, which is in the top 25% of baseball, while the fastball is doing a decent job of getting high. I think he's let a few too many leak into the middle of the plate, and that's why he hasn't been able to get the huge dominant performances. But hey, I will take a beautiful ERA, allowing just one earned run through the year, 0.42 ERA for Crawford, thanks to the fastball sweeper combo. But then he's got this cutter, his namesake, that has done well enough for him this year, getting ground balls, getting weak contact. I think just given his complete arsenal, a guy that's going to throw enough innings to really impact your fantasy team with great pitching development around him, I truly believe that this would be the breakout year. I started to become a little more downtrodden on my expectations for him. I turned my expectations down a little bit, mostly because I had first become enamored with him reading my boss Nick Pollock's breakdowns of all the pitchers in baseball on the list over on pitcherlist.com, and just reading about Cutter Crawford, he sort of stood out in the range that he was in as a guy that felt safe but also had a very clear ceiling and a path towards attaining it. And yet throughout the spring training, Nick's feelings about him fell, as he used to be really high on him and then started being like, maybe he's not going to quite get to where he wanted to be. And while I won't take a victory lap, although I want to do that, I love taking victory laps early on in the season. There's a part of me that's like, okay, well, like this can't last forever. But given that there's still clearly some things he can work on, keeping that four seamer upstairs, turning the cutter into more of a CSW pitch. Right now, just 21% CSW, which is in the bottom 25% in the league. Making him more than just a two-pitch pitcher, four-seamer sweeper. If he mixes in that cutter a little bit more, which he's throwing each of those basically equal amount of time, 30% of the time across the board, and then mixing in a curveball and a splitter every once in a while, I think he's got true breakout potential. He's not going to be a Cy Young, but I think this is a guy that could go 160, 170 innings, very low threes ERA with a strikeout rate over 25%. And you will take that in literally any league, maybe not a 10-teamer, but Cutter Crawford, really exciting this year. And that 0.9 F4 that Davis mentioned, he is leading baseball in F4. Cutter Crawford is. So I feel much better now, because I did draft him in a lot of leagues and then got worried when Nick's analysis of him started to take a different turn and be like, maybe we should back off him. And I started getting a little scared. Like, dang, maybe I leaned in too heavily on Cutter Crawford. But hey, it's turned out beautifully so far, and I'm excited to see if he can carry this going forward. He faced the Mariners, Angels, Orioles, and Guardians so far, and while three of those teams I would say are pretty bad in terms of offensively, mostly Cleveland, the Angels, and Seattle. But the Orioles offense is legit, and he struck out his his second most batters in that outing. He did walk 4 guys, but he only allowed 2 hits. And yeah, that was really interesting to see, and glad to see him succeed against the Orioles. I expect Davis to be back in the next minute or so. So we'll move on to Reed Detmers, and I'll set him up to give his opinion on that. Reed Detmers has gone 3-0 thus far in 4 starts, 17 and a third innings pitched with a 1.04 ERA, a 0.81 whip, and a strikeout rate north of 40% at 40.6%. That goes along with a 0.8 FWAR, tying him for second place. I think Zach Wheeler might be at 0.9 and tied for first, which would make him third. Wheeler's at 0.8. So he is tied for second. And Detmers has looked absolutely incredible this year. And it's a mix of a bunch of different things. Hey, Davis, welcome back. We're talking about Reed Detmers. It is a mix of a bunch of different things why he's been so good this year. And I mean, in the past, I think a lot of people have been in on him heading into the season, and then he just never lived up to it. There was a while where he was like fastball, curveball, and he just needed a third pitch. And then he introduced a slider, and then it was just about that slider being like a legitimate whiff pitch. And now, after back-to-back years of not really living up to his potential, 4.48 ERA last year, he went 4-10, which is terrible. This year he comes into the season and we're like, okay, well, we know who Reed Detmers is. He's a fastball, slider, curveball guy, and none of the pitches are going to be good enough. The slider can, get a lot of swinging strikes and be pretty solid, but it's not going to carry him if the curveball isn't good enough or the 4-seamer is giving up home runs like crazy. Well, Detmers came in with a completely new 4-seamer, and that I don't know if that's a grip change or what, but the stuff on the pitch absolutely got way better. He added 2 inches of induced vertical break. The vertical approach angle stayed about the same, but the movement on the pitch was huge, and so that allows him to keep it upstairs. And that pitch has been absolutely incredible for him. Just a 96th percentile swinging strike rate, 89th percentile CSW. His PLV for that pitch is average, but it's really helped the rest of his arsenal out as the slider's getting a ton of swing and misses. The curveball is landing in for called strikes, and the changeup is there to help against right-handed batters. But that 4-seamer has been the whole difference for Reed Detmers. Davis, how are you? Are you excited about Reed Detmers? Do you believe this? Is this something that you saw coming, or had you given up hope before the season?
It's definitely not something that I saw coming. Reed Detmers always felt like someone that had the potential there to have to really become a good pitcher at the very least. Not necessarily an ace caliber pitcher, but the thing with the induced vertical break on the fastball and a lot of the pitch mix gives me a lot of similarities to I mean, I'm sure you've already mentioned it before I even got here. I wasn't able to see that, but there's probably a strong chance that you mentioned the Blake Snell blueprint, which a lot of pitchers need to follow. He sort of has those similarities. It's a similar pitch mix, fastball, slider, changeup guy. Blake Snell mixes in a big curveball, which Detmer sort of kind of has, not as much, but induced vertical break on fastball. You mentioned the new fastball grip, and it sort of makes a big difference. And you see that now with the K percentage numbers. He's at like 41% almost.
Mm-hmm.
The PLV on the fastball's gotten a lot better. He's like leading. I think he was leading in FIP at the current moment in time. I think he has like a 1.44 FIP or something like that on the season. It's just excellent. And it looks like this could potentially be here to stay. I want to see a little bit longer of like this sustained before I'm really going to be like, oh yeah, Reed Detmers is the truth. I want to see it, but he has a lot going for him, and it is very reminiscent of like another guy that we might talk about a little bit later. If not on this podcast, hopefully he can continue it as well. It's like Mackenzie Gore. It's like a lot of the same similarities, pitch mix, and if you watch them too with Mackenzie Gore, Sliders down, sort of like Mackenzie Gore has they call it a cutter. It's not a cutter. It's just a hard slider. But Reed Detmers has the slider, changeup, curveball, and the four seamer, and it's just nice to see numbers creep up for a guy that was a top prospect. He was like a top prospect for the Angels, didn't pan out, and it feels like the Angels never had good luck with that outside of like Mike Trout. So hopefully something good can happen for them. It's
Totally.
nice to see. We can continue, and we will get right into our players of the week because we have missed a few of them, and we're going to start with week one. And on the AL side, the week one player of the week was Juan Soto, and on the NL, it was Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Two guys we talked about at length a little bit in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Soto succeeding. Not that I'm rooting for the Yankees or anything, but it's cool to see him going to such a big stage and having a lot of success there. And he truly has. I mean, first week was crazy, but even still, 3 weeks into the season, batting .324, walking more than he's striking out by a lot, 16-11, got a few home runs, and he's been up way better defensively than in the past couple of years. So maybe New York is really the home for Soto, and this is where I don't know if he could take his career to another level. He's already been pretty incredible, but maybe he takes his game to another level in New York. And I feel like if he has a lot of success there and the Yankees win a lot of games and give him some more taste of the postseason, I don't see why he wouldn't sign an extension. I know he's a Boris guy, so he's likely to test free agency. But honestly, if like this keeps up the whole season and Soto has like an MVP caliber season and the Yankees make it to the ALCS or whatever, I don't see why Juan Soto wouldn't resign.
Yeah, I think the Boris argument is becoming a little bit more complicated too after what we saw in the offseason too with a lot of guys struggling.
He sucks. He's washed.
Juan Soto is a much better player than like Jordan Montgomery and Cody Bellinger and Matt Chapman. So I understand that it's a little bit different. I think Juan Soto, if they give him a number, that's good enough because I think he genuinely does care. Yeah. I think if they give him something like that, and it's the Yankees who are a culture of winning and have always been around it and have a competitive team, I think that means a lot. And I think he would most likely want to re-sign. He's not a guy that I think is going to be bag chasing, especially if they're going to give that much money anyway. What's a couple extra, 20, 40, 50 million, but he should, I don't know. He'll give him a cajillion dollars, go sign a blank check if this is what he's going to be doing for you because he's just so good. And I hate rooting for the Yankees, but I really like rooting for Juan Soto because he's such a fun baseball player just in general. So it's cool to see. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., though, on the other hand, we talked about him on the offseason like, okay, well, he's going to be like a depth piece somewhere. He's vibes guy. He's been really good. Yeah, he's kind of proved he's a lot more than a vibes guy. I think he's on case to be an all-star already. He's been really good. He's tied for the league lead in home runs amongst all National League outfielders. He's first in RBIs among outfielders. He's like third in runs, fifth in hits, sixth in slugs, seventh in OPS. He's got like 20 RBIs, 5 home runs, something like that already. And it's a guy that we're just like, oh yeah, he's fine. Like he's pretty good. He's got like a 140 WRC plus. Well, I think he's walking just about the same amount as he's striking out. I think it's like 12% to 10% or something like that.
Yep.
It's been a huge step up for Lourdes Gurriel. And the Diamondbacks offense, who just looks so good, and I really like it. I like Lourdes. He's always been a fun guy, even when he's with Jays. Really, really plays like baseball player. See him sort of having him.
Yeah, I sort of thought he was mid for most of his career.
Well,
and now
he has been mid.
Yeah, I just thought that would continue. He's I don't know. He's never really stood out to me. He's always been like a very solid guy. He's like an average major leaguer. He's never even like surpassed 2 FWAR, which is, baseline for like an average major leaguer. And now he's gotten off to this incredible start. And I wonder like what's changed or if it's just a hot streak, because a lot of times this early in the season, not only with small sample sizes, but just like us being humans, we see somebody have a crazy 3 weeks and we're like, whoa, is this going to last the whole season? But if this 3 week span happened in July, nobody would say anything because it's just a hot streak. I think that's probably the case here. The plate discipline metrics intrigue me a little bit because he's always been a free swinger who still makes pretty decent contact. But if he's a guy that can capitalize even more on his contact abilities and his strike zone judgment and double his walk rate and strike out less, then he becomes like super legit. I don't expect it to keep up, but walk and strikeout rates are some of the most quickly stabilizing stats in baseball. So if those stabilize and like we're a month in and he's still walking, I don't know, 9% of the time, striking out 13% of the time, I think that's a different Lourdes. He's being more selective at the plate, and that's going to allow him to make more damage or do more damage. And maybe we see him reach 30 home runs and bat 300, and it's just like a crazy season for him. But yeah, glad to see him having success and proving me wrong.
Yeah, he's been like definitely more selective in the zone. He's not swinging as much, sort of in line with last season, but he's not chasing nearly as much, and he's also right around the same amount like of on like barrel rate as like his league average. Exit velocity is like just about in line with his max exit velocity, which was weirdly enough when he was a rookie, or his average exit velocity. So I mean, he's swinging more at stuff in his zone, not chasing as much. It's good, and he's hitting it hard when he is. Typically, all the stuff that you want your hitters to do, which is good. It's a good hitter's ballpark as well, and it's honestly a division outside of Petco that is a hitter's division. It's I think I'm not sure necessarily it's going to be continued throughout the season. I think we've all sort of been victim of like, hey, this guy's like legit early on in the season. I know I have. It's easy to be reactionary, like you said, but I like Lourdes. I hope it's sustained. I think he's a fun baseball player, vibes guy, got the crazy hair, just fun guy. The Diamondbacks have a really fun team. Really hoping that he can continue to be good. We can go to week 2 and we can talk about the AL Player of the Week, Ronel Blanco. Why was that, Jake?
He threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, pretty much. We have spot start no-hitter. Wasn't even the penciled in starter. Just sort of had to emergency start. No-hitter. Yeah, easy enough.
Yeah, he's been absolutely crazy. Before I talk about him, you are connected to, I think, your earphone microphone.
Yeah, probably. I'll fix it. Yep, sure.
Dope. And then so Ronel Blanco, he had a crazy story. I can't remember it like straight off the top of my head, but I remember it was like something like he was pitching somewhere and then he was pitching somewhere else and then he almost gave up on pitching. You know, the classic feel good story where the guy makes his major league debut at 30 years old. I think he had debuted previously, but he gets a starting spot at 30 years old for the Astros, makes the opening day roster, season debut, just no hitter, crazy. He had 20 whiffs in that one. He looked really strong. His changeup, which I didn't think was supposed to be like his big pitch, was unhittable on that one, 41% CSW and 10 whiffs. And then it was like, okay, guy's 30 years old. He's not going to throw no hitters every time out. And then he's facing the Rangers, defending World Series champion, one of the toughest lineups to face for a pitcher, back-to-back starts. He comes back out, continues his scoreless streak, 6 scoreless innings, then comes back and faces them again, allows just 2 runs over 6 innings. The fastball has been really good. Everything's been really good. He's got a 0.86 ERA, a 0.71 whip. This is definitely not going to keep up through the whole season, but the fact that he had this success super early on is really cool, especially because I think it guarantees him a spot in the rotation for the foreseeable future, because it allowed the team it sort of forced the team to keep him on the roster. And then with guys like JP France and Hunter Brown absolutely sucking, it's like, okay, well, you're not going to send down your best pitcher. You're going to send down JP France or Hunter Brown, and then when Justin Verlander returned. So Ronel Blanco, really cool. Just a really fun story. And that no-hitter super early on in the season is fun. We won't be like counting the days until we get our first no-hitter. But yeah, that was great to see. A great story.
Yeah, definitely. Talking about stuff we might mention later, there's been 3 complete game shutouts so far this season. And they're pretty big household names. We got Ronel Blanco, Ranger Suarez, and Tanner Houck. So,
how many do you think we had last year? I'm pulling it up, but I'm
no hitters are complete. No hitters are complete game shutouts.
Do they have shutouts? I would say complete game shutouts.
Let's go.
Oh, they don't have shutouts. What about complete games.
Complete games.
This is this year. Last year, how
Thir-
many complete games do you think there were?
13. 13.
Last year, there were a lot more than 13.
27.
Well, I don't know the total. I'm looking at the leaderboard. Who do you think had the most complete games, and how many do you think they had?
I think it was Nathan Eovaldi, and I think he had 5.
Nathan Eovaldi had 2, and the
2.
leader had 3.
He had a bunch of games where he had like 8 innings.
The
Who was
leader
the
had
leader?
3. Sandy Alcantara had 3, and Jordan
Alcantara.
Lyles. Jordan Lyles also had 3.
Chad-
Mike Clevenger had
Chad
2.
inning a year.
Alex Cobb had 2. Garrett Cole had 2. Eovaldi had 2. Fromber had 2, and Logan Webb had 2. And then there's like, I don't know, 20
A bunch of
guys that had
with
1. Yeah.
Chad innings eater.
I know,
Jordan
it's
Lyles.
crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean the complete game is gone. But yeah, it is funny to see like
That is really funny.
not big aces going out there and throwing complete game shutouts.
Did you see Tanner Houck's?
I did not. We were talking
Did you
about
see
it.
I know. Did you see anything about it? It was a
No.
Maddox. It was a Maddox.
It was under 100.
It was a Maddox, and not only that, if you watch the Foolish Baseball thing, it was a Burley Maddox, and he did it in under 2 hours, sub 2 hour Maddox for Tanner Houck, hour 49 minutes. It's the shortest 9-inning game. This is from Sarah Lang's at Slangs on Sports. Shortest 9-inning game in Major League Baseball since Detroit beat Cleveland in an hour and 44 minutes on May. Oh, sorry. Yeah, on not May. That is wrong. On June 2nd, 2010. Do you remember what game that was?
Mark Burley's perfect game.
That was the Armando Galarraga blown perfect game.
Damn.
Yeah, no, that sucks. But yeah, pretty cool for Ronel Blanco. Really interesting story for kind of a weird. There's always like 1 or 2 every year. We can talk about the NL one, which is Spencer Steer, because God, that guy is just incredible at baseball. He feels like one of the most underrated players in all of baseball.
Yeah, I was not in on him this offseason. His batted ball metrics were pretty underwhelming. He's on a team where playing time was not guaranteed because they had so many infielders. Obviously, he could play outfield, but they had TJ Friedel, Will Benson, Jake Fraley. Like, he could be on a short side of a platoon in left field easy enough. And I just didn't see enough in what he did last year in his like across the board above average production that I could believe in the following year. And usually when guys have that kind of production where they're good in everything, you know, but they're not like standout in anything. It's like they're a solid power hitter. They've got good speed. They're not like terrible at defense, though. He was terrible. And they don't strike out a lot. They walk a decent amount. They hit for a good average. I don't know. It's like a 5-tool player, but like not a 5-tool player, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I was pretty underwhelmed. I didn't think he was going to do it over again. And I still am a little bit skeptical that this is going to continue for the whole season, but he's coming out and being like, hey, you thought my rookie season was good. Wait till you see what I look like when I get adjusted to the big league level.
Definitely. So he's been one of the league leaders in like hard hit percentage. I think he's really high up there, percentile like 93, 94 or something like that. Hitting the ball hard. They play in Great American Small Park. It's going to play. I think he's been like 176 WRC plus, worth like 1 F4, something like that. He's good. Also one I'm a little skeptical of. I like his bat a lot. I think basically it's pretty easy if you do fantasy to like any of the Reds hitters because they play in Great American Small Park. They're always going to have that benefit. But I think Steer's bat's good. I like the plate discipline metrics. He's almost in the range of walking as much as he's striking out. I think it's like 10 to like 15 or something like that.
14 to 15.
Yeah, 14 to 15. I am a little off, but yeah, 14 to 15. Hitting ball hard, just sort of doing all the right things. Got to see if it's going to play through the rest of the season, though. But congratulations, Spencer Steer. And we're in week 3. We can talk about rookie. Hey, look at that. We got Colton Cowser of the Baltimore Orioles. Tell me a little bit about him and his weekly award.
Well, I had both of the weekly award winners in my home league with you.
Humble brag.
Yeah, both Cowser and Pete Alonso. Kowser's been a top prospect for the Orioles for a few years now, and he made his debut last year. He didn't do too well in 26 games, batted 115. And then this year he's come up, and he initially started off in like a fourth outfield role, and then he just got on a hot streak for a week, and he's locked himself into like the 2-hole in the lineup, just showing incredible power. That's something that he's proven throughout his minor league career too. He had 22 home runs in 114 games, or he had 17 home runs last year. And the year before he had 19. But these are in very small sample sizes. This is a guy with 30 home run power. He just strikes out a lot. So I had always been somebody who was skeptical that Kowser would be any good. So it was surprising that he was on my team. It was pretty lucky. I just like streamed him for a day, and then he hit 2 home runs, and I was like, well, I got to keep him. And then I kept him for a whole week because he just kept going. And then I traded him for Ryan Pepio because I knew that this was not going to continue. And while I do think Kowser at some point could be pretty good, he just strikes out too much to be good in our points league because we'd get negative points for strikeouts. For his career in the minor leagues, he's been a high 20% strikeout guy, which to me is a low 30% strikeout rate guy in the majors. And we saw just immediately after, like, his hot streak just came to a screeching halt as after going off for a complete week, the last day of him on my team goes 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. And I was like, yep, there he is. And now he's off my team, and now I got Ryan Pepio. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was cool to see Colton Kowser have his week of fame in that crazy Orioles lineup.
Definitely so. And then we have my whack prediction from last year of NL MVP, super early prediction. Pete Alonso, the polar bear. It feels like we have not been talking about the Mets at all, and that is for a good reason because that is a bad baseball team. But Pete Alonso, one of the lone bright spots right now, just absolutely mashing home runs left, right, center.
Yeah, he got off to a slow start, and then he hit like 4 home runs in 4 days, and then he was right back on track. So that's good to see. I don't know. He's just so consistent in terms of hitting for power, and last year was very fluky in the average department because his BABIP was like 50 points below what it usually is. So I think this year he's going to bounce right back. He's going to be a guy that bats 265 with 40 home runs and plays every day for the Mets. So, I mean, that's really good. And sometimes he's going to have these weeks where he hits his home runs in bunches, and that gets him the notoriety of being a player of the week. But I don't think Pete Alonso is a change guy. He's still one of the best power hitters in the game.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. He feels like one of the most consistent, like rock steady power hitters that has played for a while. He just always feels like you could pencil him in 40 home runs or thereabouts every single year, no matter what. And yeah, he's kind of on track for that again. I like Pete Alonso a lot. Still kind of strikeouts still down. Right on line with it. He's 265. He's hitting 269, 151 WRC plus, gets 6 home runs. He's on pace for like 42 or something like that. So yeah, Pete Alonso, that guy's real cool. What's not cool is a bunch of really fun pitchers to watch getting injured and probably being done for the season. A lot of these are already pretty much penciled in to be gone for the entire year, and it sucks because we've lost a bunch of names. We've lost Spencer Strider. They said he's done for the year with the internal brace.
Oh,
right?
Yeah,
he's done with the internal brace. So Spencer Strider's out for the year. Shane Bieber is a Tommy John guy. We're going to lose Framber Valdez, Yuri Perez. We already lost Giolito. Kyle Bradish is already out. Trevor Stephan. Like, we're losing a lot of just pitchers in general because of injuries in the offseason, injuries in spring training, or injuries extremely early on. Spencer Strider made 2 starts, and then he got hurt in his 3rd one, and then he's just done. And it's like, well, this really, really sucks. A lot of people are trying to point the blame towards velocity, and I think there's an argument to be made because a lot of the guys that are injured are the leaders in velo for starting pitchers. So I think you can definitely make that argument, but it sucks regardless that we're losing out on seeing so much great pitching.
Yeah, it's been really unfortunate. And it's not even like we entered the year in a good state in terms of having all of our aces around. We already entered the season. You're always going to enter the season with a bunch of injured pitchers, but we entered this season with tons of aces being out with a Tommy
Right.
John surgery or other injuries. And it already felt like, oh man, we're seeing like a really weird season here. And you could feel it during draft season because there were no aces to draft. It's like, 10 pitchers go and you're like, dang, this guy has a lot of question marks. I'm not sure I want to draft him in the fourth round, you know? And yeah, we just continue to see it into the season as players continue to ramp up, and it's continuously being huge names. We saw Garrett Cole right before the season start hit the IL, and while he won't miss the whole season, he'll miss a good chunk with an elbow injury. Giolito going down with Tommy John surgery, Kyle Bradish having to hit the IL for at least a month, and then now we've got Spencer Strider out for the year, Ari Perez out for the year, Shane Bieber out for the year. Some huge names. Bieber was on his way back to having a huge renaissance campaign. Ari Perez looking for his first full big league campaign. Spencer Strider aiming for his first Cy Young. Framber Valdez will be back, but I mean, he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he was just done for. Fangraph stopped working for me. That's cool. Yeah, it's been really unfortunate, and like I'm not even counting guys that have non-arm injuries like
Right.
Pivetta or any of the guys with oblique strains, Johan Duran. There's so many injuries right now, and while I have seen studies suggest that we don't have more injuries than we usually do, I think they are weirdly just affecting the top pitchers, and maybe like you were saying, it's linked to velocity, and that's why we're seeing the top pitchers go down, because the top pitchers are the ones that thrive on
Right.
high velocity.
See, did you see anything with the interview with Chris Bassett? I don't
A
remember.
little bit.
I don't remember if it was with Pitcher List, with Friedman, or if it was with someone else. But he basically said that like the human body is not designed to throw an object 95 to 100 miles an hour. He said it's designed more or less to max out around 91 or 92, and people need to start being okay with that. And I think you can make a case, because I wish I could find the list, but it was like a bunch of these guys that were the league leaders, like in starting pitcher velocity on average fastball velo. Those are almost all of the ones that are getting hurt. And that sucks. Like Strider was the leader in it. He's gone. Like a Yuri Perez was up there. He's gone. Framber Valdez up there. Gone. Garrett Cole injured. It's like it's looking to be a little bit more than coincidental for me. And I don't know. I think I don't remember who said it. I saw a tweet. It might have honestly even been from Pollock. And I think it was like, yeah, it's because pitching goes in cycles. It's like we've gone through a phase where it used to be maximizing like longevity and throwing more innings. And now it's gone to maximizing that maximum effort. And even I watched the Cubs broadcasts because that's what it is. And Jim Deshaies, former big league pitcher, he's one of their commentators, and he talked about it. And he was like, yeah, it's because you have these guys that go out there and they just throw maximum effort for 80 pitches, knowing that that's their leash. They're going to be done. And that just puts so much strain on your arm. It just sort of, it wears you down.
Did you see what Glasnow said?
Yeah, very vaguely.
Like he was saying it's worth it. It's worth it to like go out and pitch at like a better level, even though you're going to get injured, and then just taking that. And I think teams have like put that into an equation and been like, okay, I'd rather have 80 innings of like 20% better performance than I would have 160 innings of, 20% worse performance. And yeah, I guess like they know like, hey, we just have enough pitchers and we tell them all to do this, then they're all going to be really good. But yeah, I saw that same leaderboard where it was literally just like, they didn't change anything. It was just like top 20 pitchers velocity last year out of starters. And it was like, at what, like 75% of the guys were on the IL.
Yeah, it was like 80%. I think there was only like 4 names left on it that were not injured. And I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. And it really sucks, but you see it over and over and over again. And you see like people are joking about like, oh, well, the era of the Chad innings eater is going to come back. And I think there's some value to it, but
sure.
I don't know. It's a weird situation. A lot of people are trying to pin blame on the pitch clock and all these other things, and I think that's a bunch of bullshit. But
yeah. What about the guys throwing 105 miles per hour?
yeah, like I think it's down to that max effort thing, and I
Mhm.
really do think it was Pollock. I wish I could find those tweets. I've been trying to scour my Twitter, but it's a shit show. It basically said it goes in cycles where it's like, okay, right now it's about prioritizing and maximizing what you can get out of your arsenal, throwing the
Mhm.
hardest, getting the most spin, best breaking ball, stuff like that. The things that just take a toll on your body, and eventually it will shift back towards the longevity part. It's cyclical. It's not really how that works right now. Said it is an unfortunate side effect. Like Glasnow said, it's like, okay, well, just go out there and throw hard, and you know you're going to get hurt. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and Glasnow is the poster boy for that, really. I mean, he's
Mhm.
never really thrown over 130 innings. And he has nasty fastball, great extension, great breaking ball, and gets hurt all the time. It's like, okay, sure. I don't know. But it is an unfortunate reality that we just don't get to watch these pitchers now because so many of them are hurt. It sucks for the game in general. And it sucks for the fans because,
Yeah.
I wanted to see Strider go out there and really establish,
Mhm.
like, yeah, he is the best pitcher, the best starting pitcher in all baseball. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you get 2.5 starts and he's done. It's like,
Yeah.
that sucks.
It definitely does it makes the game a worse product, just not having your best players out there. It's great. Like, I could make a list of the top 40 injured pitchers and compare it to the top 40 healthy pitchers. And I think the top 40 injured ones might be better. Obviously, they're
Yeah,
not better
I
because they're
think so
injured,
too.
but like
Well,
the
yeah.
amount of talent out there on the IL, not only like remnants of last year's Tommy John guys or other guys that have dealt with other things prior to this year, but that on top of all of the guys that have already gotten injured this year, whether minor or super significant. But the amount of like significant injuries we've seen to top pitchers that just knocked them out for the whole year is absolutely wild. And it's really not great to see. And I hope we can figure something out. I mean, maybe we could see like an offensive explosion if teams start going away from allowing their pitchers to throw max effort.
Yeah, I agree.
They could offset it with the ball.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want it to go to like a weird dead ball sort of situation so we can get pitchers to throw more. It's the game. I think the game's the most exciting it's been. It's more or less about, I really don't know where the line to toe is. I think the era of starting pitchers going out and throwing 80 pitches for me personally, and we're similar. We're both like really heavy, like analytics, sabermetrics sort of guys. Like I know exactly more or less what it is. I think starting pitchers literally being capped at 80 pitches and then you're done just sort of is a little reductive to even being a starting pitcher at that point. It's gone from like, and I'm not saying they all need to be chuds and they all need to go out there and tungsten arm O'Doyle everything and throw 9 innings and be Tanner Houck and all that stuff. It's like, but Tanner Houck basically got a complete game shutout because he threw a Maddox. It was a 94 pitch complete game shutout.
Yeah,
Probably
pitching to contact.
Right. He had 9 Ks. Like
which you can still do.
Like, yeah, that's the thing though. It's like if he's at 115, he's gone a mile of it. Like he's gone forever ago. He's not getting that far. They're not going to let him. Like, that's like, I guess that's a baseball sort of purist chud thing to think. But the 80 pitches thing, I think is a little like, all right, what are we doing at this point?
My favorite podcast always suggests limiting further the amount of pitchers you have on a roster. So right now, I think you can have 13, but if you lower that to 10 and you want 5 starters and you only have 5 relievers, 10 might be a lot, but if you only have 5 relievers, you can't be using the relievers on every day. Either the relievers are going to have to all be multi-inning guys, or you're going to have to get more out of your starters, whether that be pitching into the 7th inning or just as a whole throwing 200 innings, because there is a set amount of innings every year that you have to pitch.
Yeah. And that's a solid idea too, because you're even seeing more guys that are becoming extremely valuable because their specific carved out role is that they do throw multiple innings out of the pen. And
but it's max effort. It's like they would be starters. Otherwise.
That is true. That is true. It's just, how do you
or they would suck. They would be out of the league.
It's like, how do you fit these guys to fit like a role for that more or less, because you keep seeing it, and it's weird because now we have all these pitcher injuries. We have all these guys that, okay, well, if you are not a max effort guy, and it's like, it's fine if that's your role. Those max effort guys, that role is carved out for you to be a reliever. That's what you're supposed to be. Calling out, like, okay, well, say, I don't know, like, I'm going to use the Cubs example. They go out and they have, I don't know, Ben Brown, who just came up. They literally capped him at like 70 pitches his first start. And they still gave him an opener. Like, he had Luke Little throw as an opener, and then he's going to come in. He threw 4 innings, and he barely got through the 4 innings because they had that pitch count. It's like, they know going in, you're only going to get set amount of pitches. And then that just determines how the rest of the game goes. And then that further taxes your bullpen. And you have to have those guys throw max effort out of your pen, because you need to go like, hey man, go get me 2 2/3. And I need you to throw as hard as you possibly can every single pitch. For that, you're gonna cause harm to that individual, because you're gonna rely on that so much, because you have that set. Like, all right, I need my starter to do this. It's not like a leash. And I want to joke around and make the stupid Chad Innings eater joke, because like Jordan Lyles, you've seen the Foolish Baseball video. It's like, that's what Jordan Lyles does. Like, that pitcher honestly just becomes infinitely valuable. And
he's a 1-inning pitcher right now.
Right. Like, I don't, it sucks. It's like, you need to have those roles carved out for guys that like can go and just go 6 or 7 innings, even if they're garbage, because it just saves your bullpen. That's what your guys like Jordan Lyles are supposed to be for, and Cal Quantrill, and these guys that just flat out are shitty pitchers, man. They suck, but they're starters that just, hey man, go out and get me 6 innings so my bullpen doesn't have to die today. It's like, the game is sort of in a I want to say in a bad spot, but I don't think it is. I really don't. It's just it's in flux, where it's like, we're still on a carryover of like, these guys are cooked, like Kyle Hendricks and Jordan Lyles, and these guys that are the contact guys, they're not max effort guys. Like, their role is now weird. Like, it's sort of in a limbo, and starting pitchers that can't go out and do that. Now you have to be a bullpen arm that gives you multiple innings. It's like, you see like Mason Thompson. Like, Mason Thompson could start. That guy's not good enough. Like, what do we do with these
Where'd you pull Mason Thompson from?
Because that's all he was a fantasy monster last year, because that's all he did. He would go in and go max effort, and they'd give him 2 2/3, and then guess what happened to him?
Who are you talking about? Mason Thompson from the Nationals?
Yes.
Keegan Thompson?
Mason Thompson from the Nationals.
I never think about you seem to think about him a lot more than I do.
I'm using it as an example because I specifically remember this from last year. He was a multi-innings reliever that came in. He was a max effort guy, and then he got hurt. That literally fits the example that I'm using.
Yeah, he did get hurt.
Keegan Thompson does that too. And guess what happened to Keegan Thompson last year also?
He's hurt.
He got hurt. He got hurt. It's like, it's a weird spot to be in. It's just, I think the game is better because it is a max effort thing, and you're seeing like the best possible thing you can see. It's just, what is the line to draw before it's like, all right, too many players are getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And it's also probably a youth level thing that we can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours about. But, we'll move on. We'll move on. We'll talk about a man that has max effort when it comes to his fantasy football leagues, Tommy Pham, because of his bust up with Jock Peterson last year. Tommy Pham gets to go have max effort on a team that is absolutely not delivering that either, and that is because he signed with the White Sox on a 1-year, $3 million deal. It's got $1.5 million worth of incentives and a $500,000 bonus if he gets traded, which 100% he's going to get, because he also can request a release if he has not been called up by April 25th. You keep seeing that a lot with these sort of minor league-ish deals. It's just like hey, if you can't make it, go on somewhere else. It's happened with like Carl Edwards. It's happened with a bunch of other guys. But yeah, I mean, Tommy Pham, I know you really like Tommy Pham. Yeah. Just sort of a move to really talk a whole lot about.
No, not really. I don't know.
Not
I've
really.
always been a fan of Tommy Pham. I think he's pretty underrated. He was always really good in my home league because of his very great plate discipline, and I loved his like late career breakout because he like got his eyes fixed. You know, the guy
Yeah.
like couldn't see for like 10
Yeah.
years, and then he's just like, "Whoa, I wonder
Imagine
how good
playing a
I'd be."
professional sport and you can't see.
Yeah. So then he has like an age
Insane.
29 breakout. And so it doesn't feel like he's been around for that long, but now he's like 36 years old. And each of the last two seasons, he signed 1-year deals and been traded. So yeah, we're likely to see that again. I think this is the year where he probably starts declining a little bit. We haven't really seen it offensively for a while. 2022 had a really slow start, but he turned it around in the second half. Oh, actually, no, he sort of sucked across both halves. But I think he's still solid. He's not a good defender, but he's got a decent bat with power and speed. We saw him steal 22 bases last year as a 35-year-old. And now he'll go to a place where, if he's not getting everyday playing time, why the heck did they sign him? And they really could use some help because the White Sox are on pace to be like the worst team of all time. And their lineups they've been putting out have been the worst lineups I've ever seen. Like you saw Kevin Pillar batting fourth. Kevin Pillar should never have batted fourth in his entire career. Now he's 35.
Didn't the opening day lineup have Martin Maldonado hitting like cleanup or fifth or something like that?
I can pull that up.
I swear.
Opening day, they had Eloy batting fourth. Martin Maldonado batted eighth, but it's like he's in the lineup, and that's bad enough.
That is kind of bad enough. God, that team is so bad.
I mean, they lost their best players. Luis Robert Jr. is out for like 6 weeks. Moncada is going to be out for a while. They lost Eloy for a week
too, though. In all honesty,
they were, but now it's like you can see it. It's like there was still a chance. Like, oh well, they got Luis Robert, they got Yohan Moncada, they got Eloy, they got like big leaguers that have been all stars in the past with big prospect potential. Like they're not going to be terrible. They're not going to be the worst team in baseball. And now they're gone, and it's like, oh, they literally just have nobody else to play for their team, and they don't want to sign anybody. Obviously, they just signed somebody, but it took them until 3 weeks into the season to be like, you know what? Maybe our team has no depth, and we're going to be trash. And we've got Gavin Sheets batting third every day, and Kevin Pillar platooning and batting cleanup versus left-handers, which is insane. What do you think his career WRC plus is versus left-handers?
His career WRC plus versus left-handers is Kevin Pillar. Is it higher or lower than 90?
Higher.
92.
104, which, okay, yeah, he's above average, but by 4%.
Wow, barely.
He is a league average hitter.
Above average.
Batting cleanup against lefties, which, yeah, clearly he's better against lefties, but he's not good.
Barely. Yeah, not great.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how bad they are, but I don't know. There are some bright spots. We can get to it later.
Definitely. So we're gonna move on. We're not talking about the White Sox ever again. Hopefully we'll talk. Definitely gonna be a long year for them. Ceddanne Rafaela got extended by the Red Sox to 8-year deal worth $50 million. There is a $16 million club option for 2032 with a $4 million buyout for one of the Red Sox top prospects. You tell me some about this deal for him and how this sort of fits into the Red Sox future plans.
Yeah, Rafael was really interesting. I remember when I first saw a video of him batting, he just looked exactly like Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Not in his face, but his batting stance and his load and everything. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy, especially being on the Red Sox. And it definitely doesn't have the minor league numbers that Mookie had. But he could be pretty decent. He's got power and speed, and he's hit for high averages in the minors. I'm just not sure it totally translates. He's a really aggressive hitter. And while I think he's going to be a really good defensive center fielder who's going to have power and speed, I think he's more of a guy that bats like 240 with 15 home runs, like Michael A. Taylor or something, where he's like really good in center, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. And they got him for pretty cheap. 8 years, 50 is cheap. And I think that's probably why they could guarantee his debut on the roster this year as a 23-year-old. But yeah, maybe it's they spent a little too much because so far he's batted 164 to start the season. I don't think this is going to be his year. I think at some point Rafaela is going to break out, but I don't think for his career it's going to be like, oh wow, I can't believe they got friggin' Ronald Acuna Jr. under an 8-year, $50 million contract. Because I don't think it's going to be one of those.
Yeah, I'm honestly a really big fan of the moves like this. Anyway, just because extending your guys that you would like, you want to keep. Cool, because that also comes with a downside anyway, and it's typically one that you would see from a team that is trying to manipulate service time, but they actually don't do it because they implemented the draft pick compensation rule. Like if they're eligible for awards or they finish like wherever in the awards race, like they're awarded the draft pick. Did you know now that if a player signs an extension prior to making their debut, they are not eligible to give you that pick if they are in the awards? So I learned that because of Michael Bush, who has been really good. If a prospect,
Churio, they did that with Churio.
Right. So that just means that they're showing faith in their guy. They're not doing that because it's like they're not calling them up because they want to get the draft pick and they think they're good. Obviously, they think they're going to help them win. Like for Churio, that guy's pretty good. He's going to help the Brewers. For like Rafaela, yeah, he's one that they extended because they believe in him and they think they got some value there and they just want to get him some time. And that honestly is good because they're really doing that because they believe in that player and not more or less like, all right, well, we committed and now we're going to give you some time so you can go try to win an award. Like they could send him down. I think it's just cool to see that. Rafaela, yeah, he's been kind of ass so far, but still, I mean, they're going to give him the time to figure it out. The Red Sox are not going to be competitive this year, even though their rotation has been good and there's been some bright spots. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool story here. And it's a pretty solid deal. A pretty solid deal depending on whoever you are. If you like the City Connect jerseys, I know they've been contentious because Fanatics is garbage. The Phillies have their new City Connect jerseys out. How do you feel about them, Jake?
I don't know. I think this is one of the ones where I am not sure yet, which, not really helpful to have no initial opinion. But there are some where I have very strong initial opinions and they stick, and some that go away, and some where I'm like, you know what, I'm not sure. I feel like this one could, build on me, and I don't know about this one. Here we have a closer zoom. They are definitely interesting. Not what I expected. I did not expect them to go blue, especially not this blue. And then I don't know where the yellow comes from. I'm sure there's something, but I don't know. They're decent. I don't know what's the deal with every single City Connect needing dark pants. I just don't know how I don't feel too great about dark pants like that, but hey, with the Fanatics pants, maybe that's a good idea so you don't have to see everybody's balls all the time.
Well,
But yeah, I don't know. I think the font on the Philly is cool. I think the hints of yellow is cool. The numbers are disgusting.
Yeah.
Really I think as an aesthetic, it's cool, but not a fan of dark pants. A lot of teams are doing that gradient too that they did on the jersey. I don't know. I like the font.
I hate the gradient,
and I like the yellow.
Gotta be honest,
and that's about it. And the vibe. The vibe is sort of cool. I don't know. The hats are pretty chill.
The hats are cool. I like the hats. I kind of mess with the pants. They're fine. I actually hate everything else about it. I really don't like it. I think the font is like, it's okay. But for me, the City Connect, and I've said this, and this is a consistency thing too. The City Connect needs to do literally what it says, and it should be something connected to the city. And I don't really understand how they said this. And they typically do the breakdown, and they basically just said a bunch of nothing. They just are like, yeah. They're just like, yeah, it's blue. They're like,
it's blue because the city, sky is blue in the city.
Yeah, it's sort of like what it was like. They're like, oh yeah, it's blue. And then they were like, oh yeah, the font's cool. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what are we doing? It's like, so as a jersey, yeah, fine, okay, cool. It's like Seattle's, but without any of the actual City Connect part. It looks too close to Seattle's, and then it's got the gradient. And that's one for me too. I hate the gradients. I hate gradients on any sports jersey at all. I think it never looks quite as cool as they really wanted it to. So like, I don't know. I'm not a fan. Got to be honest. I don't know where it would rank in like the definitive ranking though of all of them.
I don't know, mid, right?
Yeah, I would put it a little below mid to ass tier for me.
Yeah, I can't find the
upper tier of ass.
Oh,
lower
here's
tier
the
of mid.
explanation. It was like, cracked pattern chest plate, a collar that's notably blue. Wow.
Yeah, that's what it said. The collar's blue. Yeah, no way, dumbass.
Whoa, that's crazy. I didn't actually realize.
Yeah, what? Is it really? Like, that's stupid.
Whoa, take off your shirt for a second. Take off your shirt for a second. I want to see something. Is the collar really blue?
Is it really blue in there? Like,
yeah. No, I don't know about this one. I wish they would have gone for something. I don't even know what I wish they would have done because I love their like Mike Schmidt era jerseys, the like maroon ones with the cool P. Those are awesome. But doing a City Connect where it's just like, these are our throwbacks and we're going to wear them more because it's our City Connects. I think that's pretty stupid, but yeah, I don't know. Very few teams I think have truly hit the City Connect.
I think the Nationals City Connect.
And they got rid of it because they're stupid.
Yeah, because the Nationals are a dumpster franchise. Like, there are cool ones. This is like, yeah, sure. It's a cool one. It also looks like a jersey that a kid would make on MLB The Show.
Sure.
Like, and whatever. I do like the hats. I think the hats are cool. And that's what brings it up a tier. Like, the hats are dope.
Mm-hmm.
The hats are really dope. The rest of it, nah, I'm good. I'm not a fan. Not too crazy about it. I will let you take the reins for this because you have been the one to set it up, and we can talk about our storylines part.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, since we haven't recorded for like the last, I don't know, we're coming up on 3 weeks, which is, it happens. We got a lot of stuff going on. You heard me. I got a rat in my car. I don't like, how am I supposed to podcast with a rat in my car?
Driving the Ratmobile.
Yeah, no, I'm just taking him out for a ride, the Ratmobile. But yeah, I just figured like we've missed a lot of stuff already, or not missed it. We haven't really had the opportunity to talk about it. And we're not going to be able to get it through all of it in one episode because there's just so much stuff. There's so many teams. So I figured, let's see what I can put together before the podcast starts. I got through 10 teams and I figured let's just go through and talk about notable things for every team. Just a good, easy way to break it down rather than randomly being like, oh, shoot, was there something else I missed? We can go through every team. We don't have to miss anybody, injuries, call-ups, whatever, good performances. And we'll do 10 today, we'll do 10 next week, and we'll do 10 the following week. And we'll probably continue to be able to add stuff, but this will allow us to, get our opinions out there, talk about everything that we wanted to talk about, and maybe make it feel like we didn't miss those first 2 weeks. So let's just hop right into it. We're going alphabetical order by city name. First off, we've got the Diamondbacks. Paul Sewald, their closer, hit the IL right before the season started. That was really unfortunate in one of my leagues because I drafted Kevin Ginkel, and then Fab, which I'm not sure how familiar you are with Fab, but for people that aren't familiar, it's free agent betting, and it's in deeper leagues and on NFBC leagues and 15 teamers. It's like every Sunday you have to bid on players that are on the waiver wire rather than other fantasy leagues where it's just like you pick guys up or there's a claim order or something. It's like you have a budget of $1,000 and then you use those dollars based on how much you think you would want to spend on a guy. But I dropped Ginkel for like Griffin Jacks because Griffin Jacks was going to be the closer to fill in for Duran. And Ginkel was like injured during spring training and was probably just going to be the setup man for Sewald anyway, who's been really consistent. And Sewald got injured the next day. I lost Ginkel and it was terrible. But hey, Ginkel's holding it down.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately against Kevin Ginkel because I like the Paul Sewald's time to pitch meme. I really think that's one of the, I know, but it's like we're missing out on prime. It's time for Paul Sewald to pitch meme time. Yeah. That's my favorite meme in the world for baseball, other than the poor Dave Roberts, his team sucks meme.
His team does suck.
Yeah, poor guy.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back in probably one more month. But what
Yeah,
I
he has
think
an
is going to
oblique sprain.
happen though, because it was a moderate oblique strain, so that's usually like 2 months, and then he's
Yeah.
got to like build his way back up. So I think we'll see him before the All-Star break. But what I think is actually going to happen is that Ginkel just pitches so well that when Seawald returns, it's like, why would we take this guy out of the closer role and sort of screw everything up that we've built through the first couple of months? So I don't. I think Paul Seawald might be done as a closer. There's always he can go to Colorado or Oakland for the last couple of years of his career and be a closer there for sure. But I mean, the guy is 34 years old this year, and if he's not the closer this year, and then he's going to be a free agent at 35, I don't know. I think Paul Sewald might be done, and your meme might be dying.
Don't say that. Don't say that. I can't. I'm not in a good mental state already, man. I'll start cratering.
All right.
I can't.
Well,
Don't
then
do this to me.
we can
Talk
move
about more
over
cool Diamondback
to
stuff.
Okay. We can move over to Jordan Montgomery, who's set to make his major league debut. Arizona Diamondbacks 2024 major league debut on Friday, which he got signed very late into the offseason, but we will get a chance to see him very shortly. I'm pretty pumped. I mean, I'm not like a huge Jordan Montgomery guy, but they've been pretty screwed in the rotation thus far, forcing them to rely on Ryan Nelson and Tommy Henry. And while I love Ryan Nelson, Tommy Henry's not great, but they'll get Jordan Montgomery back. Even though Eduardo Rodriguez is still injured and just got transferred to the 60-day IL while he recovers from a strained lat. But Jordan Montgomery maybe will bring some reinforcements to a Diamondbacks team that is sub 500 now after making the World Series last year.
Yeah, definitely. So I always like the debuts of new faces in new places. Those are always pretty fun. And they can add some of that World Series winning experience to that rotation. Maybe they can get back.
Totally. Yeah, he was on the other side in that World Series last year. I didn't even consider that when he signed, was that he was, if you can beat him, join him. But I think maybe the most interesting story, whereas Ginkel's very interesting, but Jock Peterson was also one of the Diamondbacks' new signings this year. And while he hasn't been crazy this year, he's batting 323, but he's only got one home run. This is a big power guy. He's not going to bat 300 for a year unless he never strikes out ever, not once. He struck out once a couple days ago. That was his first strikeout of the year. This is a guy that for his career has struck out over 23% of the time. He's not a huge strikeout guy. He's not a Joey Gallo, but he's not a Luis Arias.
Luis Arias has been a big strikeout guy this year.
Really?
Yeah. Have you seen his stats?
I'm pulling it up right now.
So he's been compared for his rate.
Oh, well, he's under 10%.
Bro, he's been garbage.
He's batting 292. He's got a sub 10% strikeout rate. Maybe he just started turning it around. Yeah.
I think he did.
He's just started turning it around.
He was hitting like 245 at one point.
He has not struck out for 6 straight games. And he's batted 400 during that time.
There you go. Because he was hitting 245 for a while, and I saw something. I was like, some people, Twins fans, were like, "Yeah, the Marlins are stupid because they traded us Pablo for that bum." And I was like, let's be honest. Like, it's a pretty fair trade still.
I think Pablo is way better, but
yeah, I do too. But
Jock Peterson not striking out is not something I had on my bingo card, and I'm sure this will turn around. But I mean, hey, what if he cuts off 10% on his strikeout rate and just becomes
that'd be sick.
Completely new hitter at the age of 32. That would be pretty wild. But that's the Diamondbacks so far. They've been pretty underwhelming, but they have reinforcements on the way, and even further ones in the future. We can move on to the Braves, who they've actually been good as always. They're 12-5 so far this year, but their best player and guy who had one of the best seasons of all time last year, as he was a unanimous NL MVP, Ronald Acuna Jr., took until, was it last night, to hit his first home run?
I think that's right. I was also going to mention that Jock hit his first home run a night ago.
Yeah.
And a fan threw it back on the field, and it was a home game.
No, Ronald has not hit one yet. No, I know. I thought Ronald hit one. Is that today?
That guy sucks. Maybe. Well, let's find out.
Yeah, let's do. But yeah, he's really gotten off to a slow start, which is, I don't know,
first home run today.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's warranted given that he just came off a historic season to not be able to come back
Oh, yeah.
right away and pick up where he left off. But really slow start at the plate, which is so funny because the guy has a 286 average with a 116 WRC plus and 8 stolen bases. Wow. You suck. You're better than league average. You got a 0.6 F4.
Yeah, that guy's a bum.
Yeah, it's
Here
crazy.
you go.
The standards are so high.
Definitely so.
He has 8 steals. I did not realize that.
8 steals.
More steals than RBI.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
he is.
I guess he's still
leading.
Does he still hit leadoff for the Braves, or did they move him back?
Oh, totally. Yeah. He will always be the leadoff guy.
That's what I figured. But yeah. Their lineup's been sort of struggling anyway because they're still kind of, I don't know. It's been a couple teams that feel like nothing has gone right and they're still doing well, and the Braves are one of them because their lineup's been struggling. They've had a lot of injury and like weird inconsistency, and we obviously talked about the Strider injury too, and that's a pretty big storyline. Like, I mean, their rotation is really in a weird spot without Strider. How is that going to hack it?
Yeah, I mean, Reynaldo Lopez. Go ahead.
You say you're replacing Spencer Strider. Didn't they replace him with Bryce Elder?
I think they replaced him with Darius Vines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they didn't even go to Elder. I'm not sure. Vines is more of a reliever, so I'm not sure what the long-term thing is there. But yeah, Reynaldo Lopez transitioned from the bullpen to the rotation, and that's been going pretty well.
Yeah, I think they kind of got because I believe the original plan most likely was going to be to try to call up like AJ Smith-Shawver, and then he dealt with like an injury to like start, and then he came back and he's been garbage in like the minors. It's like, oh, well, that's not good. And like, what do we do now? Because I really wouldn't want to have to rely on Bryce Elder or any of those guys, or like Dylan Dodd. Like,
no, and then it's like ultimately they'll be okay. Like you said, the lineup has been like, I don't know, not standing out like it usually does. And then it's like you look at everybody on their team and you're like, nobody's doing bad. So that's it's just like, you know,
it feels like
hitting.
It's been like steady. It's been steady. It hasn't been like the juggernaut though. It feels like by their standards as a team, it's like, oh yeah, it's still going good, but it's not like the Braves just destroying everyone. Like
it's because they have Marcell Ozuna leading baseball in home runs.
Oof, gross.
Yeah. Well, that's Atlanta right now. They have, you know, their top 2 stars are, one of them injured and one of them is underperforming, but they're still the best team in their division. So it's like, I don't know, that's probably how it's going to be the whole year. But so we can move over to the Orioles, who have been really exciting this season. And we already talked about Colton Cowser. Corbin Burns was great in his opening day team debut, and their lineup just across the board incredible. But everyone's talking about Jackson Holiday, who made his debut, and that one I was really excited about because I drafted him in our home league, and I was at the point where when the season started, I was like, oh shit, I think I screwed up because I had Andres Jimenez as my second baseman and Willie Adames as my shortstop. Neither guys that I was super confident in, and they just felt like maybe guys rather than somebody that would have a breakout season. Both of those guys have made me feel a lot better. And then Holiday, who was supposed to be my middle infielder, gets called up after 10 days. And now I'm feeling much better, except for the fact that he sucks.
Yeah, I think it took him a while to really get going. He's got like a single. He's really not doing great, but of course it's his debut. He's always sort of a weird one there, though.
Yeah.
He'll come
what
good.
What do you think his strikeout rate is through 6 games?
Let's go really high because you mentioned it. Let's go with something like it's not 100. Let's go with 62.
It's 52, which is still crazy.
Wow,
he's striking out way too much. And I think that's what people are mostly worried about, because we saw in spring training at a 31% strikeout rate. And I think he's just pressing, because when he was in AAA for 10 games this year, 14% strikeout rate. So I think he's just up there. he's just up there trying to do too much, which, hey, I don't blame him. I would also probably be pressing if I were a minor leaguer and struggled right off the bat, but he will turn it around. I just don't know if that's going to be before or after he gets demoted.
Yeah, it feels like he's sort of in line for one, but it's also 6 games. I don't know. I feel like they'll give him a longer leash. He has a negative 65 WRC plus. That's funny.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, he's never been a super, super high strikeout guy. It's like 21%, like pretty much maxed out. And that's like right when he got the AA. And then, high A, it's like, fine, whatever. He'll figure it out. It's just, will he figure it out anywhere remotely close before he gets demoted? I really doubt it. He feels just kind of like once, like, all right, just go down there and figure it out more, come back up either later this year or maybe next year. They don't it's like, it's crazy because he's the number 1 prospect in baseball and the Orioles just don't really need him.
Exactly, because the rest of their offense has been so crazy when you have like the aforementioned Colton Cowser batting in front of Jordan Westberg, who's been equally as good. Ryan O'Hearn is batting third and doing some ridiculous stuff. And Gunnar Henderson already up to 6 home runs. It's like the whole lineup is incredible. And then they still have more guys in the minors.
Yeah, what a baseball team. I guess being bad for almost a decade will do that. And you stockpile talent. But it's fun though. I'm really glad. It's also I live in Orioles country because nobody's a Nationals fan. Let's be honest. It's like Braves. It's like Braves country in Baltimore, in like Baltimore country. So Orioles being good is actually getting people into more baseball here, and it's really cool to actually see and hear people talk about baseball now because it doesn't happen as much like around, at least around me. So it's like, it's a really refreshing sort of thing. Be like, oh yeah, the Orioles, like, oh yeah, sick. I'm really stoked about it. Hopefully I would like to see them make a deep playoff run, if not win the World Series. If they're going to get there, that'd be really awesome.
Totally. And then the rotation is surviving right now. They're without Kyle Bradish, who was their top starter last year, and John Means, who's been one of their more effective pitchers over the last few years. And so far, they've survived with basically Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, and Dean Kramer carrying the way. Cole Irvin's made a couple starts, and he sucks. And Albert Suarez, I think, made his team debut today. He was pretty interesting in spring training, but he's like a 34-year-old guy coming over from overseas who had some success there, and I don't think he stays. Maybe Irvin's out when Kramer returns. But it's crazy that they're in this position right now where they are second place in their division, half a game back, and they could get huge reinforcements to the rotation.
Definitely. So, like, didn't they just say like it's basically Corbin Burns and friends, like just surviving? Because Tyler Wells, didn't they just move Tyler Wells back on like a setback?
He is injured. Yeah. I think he just hit the IL.
Yeah. Like they are really, really struggling. But how much do you quantify struggle? It's still happening. They're just keep on plugging along. It's cool. I like the Corbin Burns and friends rotation plan.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we can move over to the Red Sox. They, I think, have lived up to expectations. They're 10-9, but they have some interesting guys on their team, most notably the new addition, Tyler O'Neill, who was leading the National League or was tied for the National League lead in home runs with 7. He just recently got a concussion. Is he back? No, he was out of the lineup on Wednesday. I think he was out of it today. He got hit in the head. I don't think he has a concussion. But he's looking great in Boston, which is cool because I know now you can root for him. Maybe you still have the feelings of, I don't want to root for this guy because I hated him for so long, but he's showing that his power absolutely plays in Fenway. And as long as he stays healthy, he could have a year reminiscent of 2021 when he hit 34 home runs with 15 stolen bases. And the craziest part is that he'll be a free agent after this year. So if he has a huge breakout campaign, which, technically 2021 was his breakout, but he never repeated it, I think Tyler O'Neill could be bonkers this year.
Yeah, I'm coming around on him. I like him a lot more as a Red Sox than I do as a Cardinal, because obvious reasons. But yeah, we said it earlier, like when they made the trade, it's like, oh yeah, it's really a no risk move. Like he's either gonna be mid and get hurt or whatever, because that's sort of what he was last year. And then the year before that, where it's like, oh, he's fine, but he's injury prone, super mid. Yeah, but the lottery ticket is there, and it's been really solid. He's right-handed hitter in Fenway, just eating. Yeah, he's sick. The big thing that like makes me excited about him is the plate discipline numbers. Because like he's walking more, he's striking out a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
He is beating the shit out of the ball. Like he has always been a guy like when he's barreling it, he gets like crazy exit velos because he's a muscle hamster. Like the guy's huge, and like a small frame. So yeah, I like him. The Red Sox are fun. Like I don't think they're gonna be good, but they're fun. They've got some nice little things going for them.
Sure. Yeah. What's not fun though is that their shortstop Trevor Story is out for the year. He like dislocated his shoulder and fractured his glenoid, which doesn't sound like something I should be saying on the internet. But he is going to be out for the year as he had to get surgery on it, and it's just really been an unfortunate tenure for Story in Boston as he struggled outside of Coors, has not been able to stay healthy, and just not been there for him. And the team now has been playing Sedan Rafaela at shortstop a little bit, which that sounds a little bit even more like Mookie Betts. But also they've been turning to Pablo Reyes and David Hamilton at shortstop as well. Actually, I don't think Pablo Reyes has quite gotten in there yet. But what I think is going to happen is that ultimately we're going to see an advanced timeline for Marcelo Meyer, the team's I think he's their top prospect and one of the one of the top picks in recent drafts. And I think this year, I think his ETA was for next year, but I think there's a huge possibility, especially if the Red Sox aren't out of it by May, that they just call up Meyer if he continues to hit well and he just, takes the shortstop role from here on out. And the Red Sox say, well, sorry, Story, you had your chance.
Yeah, we always sort of said that too. Where it's like signing Story is like, okay, he's eventually just gonna not play shortstop anymore. He's gonna play second. So yeah, we mentioned it too when they made the Vaughn Grissom trades. Like, where are they gonna move everyone for this? I think Marcelo Mayer's definitely gonna be up by the end of the year, 100%. Like I would call it now. He's gonna be around. Even if they're out of it, I feel like they might as well just give him a September call up, even if they suck. It's like sure.
Robert Stevenson out for the year due to a right elbow injury. No.
Bob Steve.
See, all right, and this is where we draw the line. And we say, hey, we cannot have max effort all the time. You're hurting our favorite players like Robert Stevenson is now going to be out for the year. We'll never see him pitch in an Angels uniform in 2024, and that is just a tragedy. That sucks.
Jake is mad because he's on his fantasy team.
Not anymore. I dropped him a couple days ago.
I dropped him because he died.
Well, I heard he got removed from a rehab start, and I was like, this guy's done for. Yeah, I know my Bob Steve.
He's cooked.
Yeah. All right, we can move over to the Cubs. And Michael Busch is just like us. He hates the Dodgers, or at least he hated playing for them. And he is absolutely killing it in Chicago. There was a period that just ended last night where he homered in 5 straight games. He's already up to 6 home runs this year. And it felt like, I think both of us shared this sentiment in the offseason, was that Michael Busch felt like a quad A guy where his defense was just so bad that he's going to not really find his way into the lineup enough, and that his bat's not going to play because he's not getting consistent playing time. And then you have yourself like a Daniel Vogelbach where it's like, oh, if he plays all the time, like he's solid, but he's not going to be, valuable elsewhere to be able to carry that. And Michael Busch is showing, hey, my bat's actually good enough to like fend off the terrible defense I have, even at first base.
Yeah, it's definitely true. He's watching Cubs defense is so fun and so miserable at the same time, because if any ball in the infield gets hit to second or to short, it's like, all right, this is good. Anything that gets hit to first or third is like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life, because their corner infield defense is so bad. Michael Busch's bat is the exact opposite. It's so good. He's an extremely patient hitter, and that's been awesome to watch, because like we didn't get a big glimpse of that with the Dodgers. It did feel like he was also sort of trying to do too much then, because that team's just so much more loaded with talent. He has to kind of stand out to stick around. And with the Cubs, it feels like he's kind of carved out a role. He's a shitty first baseman defensively. They're used to that. They've had 3 of those in a row now. But it's whatever.
Eric Hosmer? Are you mentioning Eric Hosmer?
Well, okay, four shitty defensive first basemen in a row. They've had Eric Hosmer. Frank was a shitty defensive first baseman. And
Oh,
Matt
Frank the Tank. Oh my God.
Matt Mervis was a
throwback.
shitty defensive first baseman. So Michael Busch being a bad one, I'll get used to it. But yeah, he's really good. Hits the ball hard, very patient, makes loud contact. Even before, like, he started out really slow, but you could kind of tell by watching the games, it's like, all right, he's due. Everything that he was hitting as an out was hit extremely hard. And yeah, it's been really fun to watch that the Cubs offense is finally decent again. The guys that you would expect in that lineup to be good have been garbage. The guys that you would have expected to just sort of be there have really been carrying it. Michael Busch has been one of the best hitters there. It's been a fun start to the year.
Yeah, that's one addition that's been really good. And there might be another one that's been even better. Shota Imanaga is for real and just looking like an even better pitcher he was after being an all-star in Japan. He comes over, he's throwing his fastball high in the zone. It's 61% of the time, and it's paid off immensely. He's getting tons of strikes, and his PLV on that pitch, 99th percentile, paired with a splitter that has a 97th percentile, 26% swinging strike rate, and he is not allowed to run at all across 3 starts. And this is exactly what I was saying when they signed him. I was like, hey, this is going to be the best signing of the offseason. Imanaga might even be better than Yamamoto because his stuff is going to play up so well here. And boy, were we right.
Yeah, it definitely has. And watching him pitch, he fits Chicago so well. He's really kind of ingrained himself into that culture too. The fans just love him there. The whole story, really fun. His walkout song for his pitcher entrance is Chelsea Dagger by the Fratellis, which is the goal song for the Chicago Blackhawks, the hockey team. When they brought him for his visit, they took him to see the number 1 prospect for the NHL to go there, make his debut, and that's apparently what sold him. So he's super, he's a Chicago guy. They got him, and he just loves it. His stuff is so good for Chicago too because he's a fly ball pitcher. So when it's blowing in, he's gotten a little lucky too. When
the home runs will come. There's going to be a game where he'll give 6 home runs.
Yeah, there's going to be multiple games where he's going to give up multiple home runs. It's going to happen. He's a fly ball pitcher, but the stuff is so good, and he has just been excellent. It sucks. He had the really strong start against the Rockies. Second start, got a rain delay, so we didn't even get the full thing against the Dodgers. That was a really fun one. And then he had a really good game against the Mariners. Hasn't given up an earned run yet. I think he had one start where he gave up an unearned run against Seattle, but still no earned runs for him. Yeah, I really like Shota. He's a super fun pitcher. Seems like he's really enjoying being a Chicago Cub.
Yeah, and then on the south side of Chicago, the White Sox just
no one's enjoying being
maybe
White
the
Sox.
worst team of all time. They're 3-15 thus far, and that's I think that's even lucky. Their run differential is so bad. I don't know if you remember the A's last year where they were on pace to be the worst run differential team of all time. I actually don't even remember where that ended up, if they did wind up being the worst team of all time. But the White Sox are like, hey, we'll one up you. We will just have a terrible offense with one good pitcher, and we'll see how things go. And it's been crazy how bad they are, but I guess we've already talked about them being bad, so let's talk about the good stuff on their team. Garrett Crochet, one of their former top prospects, and made his debut super quickly in the majors, had never made a start in professional baseball before, and then made his professional debut on the mound as a starter on opening day and tossed 6 innings, allowing just 1 earned run while striking out 8, and then has just carried that over throughout. His worst start, he allowed 5 runs versus the Reds, but he struck out 10, and he's looked absolutely incredible because he's added a third pitch, a cutter, that's allowed him to steal strikes, and actually it's doing some crazy stuff. 95th percentile CSW, and that comes with a fastball that averages 96 and a slider that gets 20% swinging strikes. I don't know. Garrett Crochet seems to be for real.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked with that too. I know there's a lot of hype behind Crochet too. He was the first one that debuted from that class, and he was mainly just a reliever. Looked nasty out of the bullpen, then got hurt. Come back, been really good. They've had, honestly, a couple of exciting pitchers this year. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, Nick Nastrini looks fine. Like he looks like he could be decent. Jonathan Cannon's fine, and then there's the last one that we can talk about. That's another former top prospect of theirs, potentially going to break out in a new role.
Yeah, Michael Kopech looks to be moving into the closer role. Before the season started, they put him in the bullpen, which made sense. I don't know why they kept pushing him, but I felt like even when he was a top prospect, there was a sense, oh, this guy should be the closer of the future. It was sort of at that point in baseball where we were on the verge of transitioning to we're going to have these incredible two-pitch pitchers that just like blow away lineups with big fastballs and huge sliders. And we've seen that with Strider. And I think that Kopech was like the first Strider. It just didn't work out. I don't know if it was like switching teams.
That's pretty fair.
Or if Kopech wasn't there mentally, or if he just didn't quite have the stuff. But he's been up and down throughout his career. And last year really struggled as he was a starter through the whole year. He made just 3 relief appearances. And then they're just like, why do we keep pushing him through this? Let's just put him in the bullpen and have him be really good. Basically, have him become Mason Miller, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the future. Mm-hmm. Mason Miller's been bonkers, but I think Michael Kopech's the same thing, where it's just like we could use him in a multi-inning role, and then also he could just be our closer because now he's throwing way harder again. Last year as a starter, he was throwing 95, back up to 98. This was a guy that's hugely reliant on his fastball velocity and his two-pitch mix, which like you don't have to rely on him having a third pitch because he's now a closer. And he's looked really good thus far. And while they only have 3 wins and he only has 2 saves, which is crazy. I think this is the year that Kopech breaks out, and it's going to be in the role that I feel like he should have been for all this time.
Definitely. He's been one that's kind of been open about like the mental struggles too. So I always kind of root for guys like that. Hopefully you can find out and really, really flourish in that role. Sure. Shout out for Michael Kopech. That guy's cool. We can talk about the next team, which is the Cincinnati Reds. And we've talked about a little bit this first one already, and it's Spencer Steer. Can he actually back up his pretty successful start to the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think we waxed poetically about him already, so I don't know if there's any reason to go back there. But actually, what I would like to say is, you remember on opening day when Nick Martini hit 2 home runs?
What a guy!
That was crazy.
That guy is one of the Major League Baseball players of all time.
With alcohol last name, he is one of them. But
Seth Beer, Nick Martini dream team.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about this team. I mean, like there's no surprises. Ellie De La Cruz power speed combo doing exactly what we thought he would, and the rest of the team, the rest of the team's there. You got a rotation that has a lot of potential, and we have not really seen it. Nick Lodolo really the only one who's had a good start. We've seen a couple good starts out of the rest of the guys, but it's not like something that makes me believe that something else is going on here. So I'm pretty concerned about the team in general, especially considering Matt McClain is going to be out for the first half of the season after undergoing shoulder surgery.
Yeah, that sucks a lot because he was one of the ones that I really enjoyed watching the most last year. He felt like one of the big consistent ones. And honestly, we talked about like Ellie De La Cruz and all these exciting guys. They called up Matt McClain, and he was like very quietly just really good, like really, really good. And now they're not going to have it.
Yeah,
I know you liked him for fantasy.
Sure, yeah, he was on my team. I didn't like drafting him this year, but I would have if the right ADP presented itself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to expect with this team. It feels like they're missing the depth to survive any sort of injuries. And now you got Ellie De La Cruz at short and Jonathan India at second. And it's like, oh, look, they do have the depth. And then you realize, oh, they're without Matt McClain, TJ Friedel, and Noel V. Marte in the infield and the outfield, I guess, in the offense. And now it really starts to make sense why they signed Jeimer Candelario.
Definitely so.
All right, and we'll stay in Ohio, and we'll go to Cleveland, where the Guardians are in first place. They're 12-6. Very cool. And is this the year Josh Naylor becomes an all-star?
I think so. I'm a big Josh Naylor believer. I drafted him relatively highish in fantasy. I love the plate patience. He hits the ball hard. good defender. I like Josh Naylor a lot. I think he's a really good baseball player.
And he just gets so fired up like nobody
Yeah, he
else in the
does.
game
Great,
can.
great personality.
Yeah.
Awesome guy.
He got his brother on the team. Like that's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah, and he's walking the same amount he's striking out. 8 walks, 8 strikeouts. He's already up to 4 home runs. He's batting .330. I think we've just been waiting for him to play 140 games and like just be consistent all year long. And if he walks a little bit more, shows a little bit more patience. I mean, last year we saw him bat .308 with 17 home runs and 10 stolen bases in a 2.7 WAR season. The defense is bad, but like that bat is absolutely incredible. And I don't know. I feel like I could see like Corey Seager-esque season, maybe not the same power, but somewhere where he bats 300 legitimately, not just like BABIP induced, and then he also hits 30 home runs.
Yeah, I could see that. Best case scenario, I really could see that happening. That lineup, he sort of has to carry a lot of the freight too, because that lineup's not very strong.
His brother's batting behind him.
Yeah, he is not. I like Josh Naylor a lot. I'm a big fan of him. I think he'll 100% be an all-star. Definitely so.
And then I don't know, the worst thing that's happened to this team is Shane Bieber going down because he looked so good, and we had been without good Shane Bieber for I almost said Justin Bieber. We've been without good Shane Bieber for a couple of years because his velocity was going down, his breakers weren't as good, and then he just showed better velocity and just looked like a dominant pitcher again. And it was like, okay, we're going to get Shane Bieber back. He's going to get traded at the deadline, and then he's going to be a free agent. And then now he's undergoing Tommy John surgery, and it's just terrible. But can this bullpen or can this rotation survive without him? Because it already felt like they were relying heavily on youngsters with Bieber anchoring the rotation. And now it's like, okay, now we really have to rely on Logan Allen, Tanner Bybee, and Tristan McKenzie, and then Gavin Williams when he returns. And then you got Carlos Carrasco in there. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if we can trust this rotation enough without their ace.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean more towards like no for that answer. I drafted Tristan McKenzie. Tristan McKenzie's been scaring the shit out of me, honestly.
Yeah, throwing 80 miles per hour.
Yeah, throwing under 90. His whole deal was like his IVB was better and the velo was up, and now it's down again. And then he had to start where his whole deal is that he had the fastball with the good IVB, and then he had the good curveball, and he threw like 55% sliders. It was over 50% sliders when it was starting. He got absolutely tagged. He got blown up. It's like, yeah, he doesn't look right. I think you're relying on too many guys that just have to figure out just being a big league pitcher first. And then Carlos Carrasco, who's 95 years old. I'm not sold on it. I think
they're still in first place, buddy.
Barely. And then I really think the Royals are going to win that division. Running away.
Were you the one that called it, right?
Yeah. I said that before the season started. I like the Royals are going to be sick. They're going to win that division with like 86 wins.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you.
Royals.
Well, we can move over to our favorite team,
our favorite baseball team of all time.
And Rockies. We love how bad the Rockies are. Like, there's almost nothing to talk about because they just suck. I mean, it's been cool to see Charlie Blackmon have a little bit of a renaissance, but that lasted 2 weeks? Because now he's been bad the last week, and now he's batting .259. And the team is 4-15, which, if you remember correctly, that's just one more win and the same amount of losses as the Chicago White Sox, who we're talking about as historically the worst team of all time. I mean, the Rockies are going to be so bad. They have no bullpen. They have no lineup. The guys that we expected to be good have not been good. Nolan Jones batting 171. Ezekiel Tovar is the only guy you can rely on alongside Ryan McMahon. And the whole team's so bad. And then Chris Bryant already injured, Mr. Injury himself. But I don't know. What do you think is the worst part about the Rockies?
The worst part about the Rockies is literally everything. They just about blew it yesterday. They have their best pitcher, which is embarrassing because it's Kyle Freeland. They almost broke him, making him pinch run yesterday.
Why would you pinch run a pitcher? What are they doing?
He was on third, and he ran and he slid to the catcher and he got hurt. They had to take him out as a precaution.
Why would they pinch run him? It's so goofy. They have him signed to like a super long extension. It makes absolutely no sense.
It's the Rockies. That's why they did it. It's because
that rotation is so bad. Like,
it's
not
really
only are you already pitching in Coors, but they were just like, what if we also just assembled just the worst rotation ever?
Yep.
And then we made them pitch in Coors. How bad could it be? Yeah, Cal Quantrill, Gomber, Dakota Hudson, but Ryan Feltner's been interesting.
I think they're a social experiment.
Yeah, an accidental one.
Is it? I feel like they're so. I feel like they're so bad that
Dick's been trolling us this whole time.
Maybe it's like, when you go take like a test and you get like it's all multiple choice and you somehow get a literal 0. It's like you could just pick C the entire time and have a better chance at it. Yeah. It's like maybe they have some of the answers as to why they're so bad, and they still are just like, oh, okay. Anyway, what if we're so bad more on purpose?
What's up, brother? Maybe he is. Maybe they know that there's like a weird flux of energy from some cosmic place, that if they do the opposite and they're like, what if instead of trying to be good, we tried to be bad, and then they were actually good?
Right. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to build up this goodwill in the universe. So maybe one day they can finally get some amount of karmic justice come back towards them, and they might be able to be good again at some point.
They draft the next Mike Trout or something.
Maybe
that's what they're waiting for. They're like, maybe if we purposefully be bad and everyone feels bad for us, then the universe will give us the next big star.
They'll give us the next star of baseball. We'll get the next.
It's like, we feel so bad for you, Rockies. Here's Mike Trout Jr.
Yeah, but they would manage to have the opportunity to draft Mike Trout Jr. and they'd take like Junior Lake Jr.
Or they extend him and then trade him.
That would also be pretty solid.
Hey, somebody will say the Rockies someday, and that will be just an incredible point in our lives.
Whoever saves the Rockies is automatically in an all-time GOAT debate.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for real. The one thing that the Rockies need to do is DFA Charlie Blackmon so he can go play for a real baseball. Well, let him go play for a real baseball.
No, he loves it there.
Yeah, well, yeah, but he's got the best.
Loves it here too.
Yeah, well, he's got the best walkout song in all of baseball, and they need to have that be on a team that might have a chance to actually play a game in October to try to win.
Charlie Blackmon's washed.
Well, yeah, he is washed. Let him go ring chase. Let him go ring chase.
Wow. No team with Charlie Blackmon's going to be winning any rings.
Yeah, they will. If he's if he's just riding the bench, bro. Every team
just taking up a roster spot.
All vibe. First bout, all vibes guy, Charlie Blackmon.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up with the Tigers. They have underwhelmed me thus far. It's felt like we've been waiting for them to break out for like 4 years now. And I thought it was going to happen in 2021, and it didn't happen. And then 2022, it didn't happen. Then 2023, it didn't happen. And now they're 10-8 this year, but it feels like it's not going to happen again. It's like they have all these young stars that they're waiting to break out, and they just never do. It feels like Torkelson was getting there in the second half last year, maybe Riley Green, but neither of those guys have been like inspiring this year. Torkelson, no home runs. Riley Green's got 3, but he's batting .217. And Colt Keith, who signed an extension before the year, batting .193. Parker Meadows, .056. Yeah. That was your guy. And it just feels like nothing's going to work out for them. And while they do have some starters that are interesting, like Tarek Skubal and Mize and some of the older guys that they brought in, and their bullpen is somewhat interesting, it's like they can't do this. Can they continue to wait for their youngsters to break out, or is it like they're going to have to tear it down and try something else?
I have no clue, but it really feels like that team cannot afford another tear down. It's just been year on year on year on year, just nothing, no hope.
But can they afford another shitty season with the same players? Do you think that they would be like, well, we'll run it back next year, and maybe next year's our year?
I have no clue, really. I really don't know what they're supposed to do. Colt Keith, I guess. what are they really going to rely on is the thing. I don't know. It's really dire straits, more or less, like looking at them where to go, because none of them have really panned out. Riley Green looked good last year. He's been mid. Spencer Torkelson, all the like signs were there like, oh yeah, he'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's been pretty mediocre again. Kerry Carpenter, like that was a guy that everyone was like, oh yeah, that's a guy that could sneaky hit like 20 home runs. He's mid. Parker Meadows, everyone was like penciling him as like, oh, big breakout guy. He's been ass. He sucks. Like he just flat out, he can't hit. It's like, okay, now what? Like,
yeah, it's like they have Jace Young and Max Clark in the minors. Max Clark is not going to be around till like 2027, and Jace Young, I don't think he's going to be the guy that comes in and saves the whole organization. I think this is just going to be a team that really has to like rely on its pitching and go out and get batters. And maybe they thought they were doing that with Baez, but you know, since then they've added Gio Urshela and Mark Canha. You got to go out and like add a bat to make this lineup legit, because when they have a rotation of like Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Jackson Jobe, who I think Jobe's going to be crazy good. Their rotation's going to be great. And then their lineup's just going to be trash.
Yeah. I really don't know what they do. It feels like they either have to swing a big trade or, I don't know. I don't know. It feels like they need to swing a big trade or get someone to sign there, and nobody wants to sign there. Hitters don't want to go to Detroit because that park's a nightmare. Like, Kamara, nobody wants to hit in America. Yeah, they have to. Like, nobody wants to hit.
They already did.
You can't move them in more.
Didn't do anything. Yeah,
that place fucking sucks.
It's so funny. Hey, but at least they don't have to worry about the bullpen where Jason Foley has taken over as the closer. On opening day, they used him as the closer because of the matchups he was set to face, which is what AJ Hinch said afterwards. Everyone was like, whoa, where's Alex Lang? He was the closer all year last year. And he was just like, well, this was just a situation where we wanted to turn to Foley. And then they keep turning to Foley because Alex Lang sucks. He can't control his pitches. And we saw that happen last year, and he was removed from the closer role for a few weeks, just to retake it by the end of the year. But I think this is the year of Jason Foley as the closer, just like huge ground ball guy, big sinker slider. And I don't know, it's like he's like Clay Holmes almost. This is like your Clay Holmes breakout type. He did show increased velocity in that debut. He was throwing like 102, and we were like, whoa, where is this coming from? From a guy that used to average 98, he was averaging 100, and that's come back down to earth. And I don't think Foley's going to like suddenly be a 30+% strikeout rate guy, but last year he was 20. So if he's 25% strikeout rate guy and he's a closer, Jason Foley's going to be sick this year.
Definitely. I like the Clay Holmes comparison a lot. Like maybe he'll be one of the bright spots because they really sort of need one.
For sure.
Really disappointing so far. Well, that is all we have. No closer. Jason Foley was the closer. We talked about it.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, we did it. Ooh, segue. Way to go. Way to build that in, Jake. I know you're playing that. Yeah. No closer. Instead, you can go follow us on x/twitter.com/ I'm going to keep calling it Twitter because I refuse to call it X ever again. I'm not going to do that. You can follow me at DVS Burden. You can follow Jake at Jake Crumpler because that is his name. You can follow the Athletes Hub so you can check back in every single podcast with us to continue to do this at Athletes Hub so far. And then you can go read the stuff on on theathleteshub.org, whatever. Go read all Jake's stuff on several websites that he very illustriously contributes to.
Ooh, illustrious. I'll take it.
I said it twice this podcast.
Well, you can find a lot of my work over at pitcherlist.com. Although this is an Athletes Hub podcast, PitcherList is my main baseball job. So you can find 3 podcasts a week there. I do the weekend editions of the First Pitch podcast, which is PitcherList's daily podcast. I also do every Friday. You can catch the In the Pen podcast, PitcherList's bullpen podcast. I host that one. I also do a weekly reliever ranks article, which is that's like our daily recap of relief pitching from the day before. So you can check that out, usually coming out every Monday. And then I'll have, my one-off articles every month. And then I do playing time analysis over at Baseball HQ. And you can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com.
Definitely. So check back in with us next week. We're going to try to get back on a normal schedule. It's just been weird.
There's a rat in my car.
Yeah, Jake had to deal with the rat cart issue. I don't know. It's been weird. We're going to keep talking baseball throughout the season. Check back in with us and follow us on those socials so you can watch all of our stuff. We really appreciate any support that we can get. It's just the best. So thank you if you stayed. But that is all for now.